Baseball fans, it is time once again for another episode of Planes, Trains, Buses, and Ballparks. With over 50 years in professional baseball and making a multitude of fantastic relationships along the way, Frank Coppenbarger shares great stories with weekly guests from various areas inside of the game. It's all here on the Fans First Sports Network. Let's get ready to play ball. Here's Frank Coppenbarger.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Planes, Trains, Buses, and Ballparks. Very excited for this show today. My guest is Jameson Hall, the Director of Team Travel for the Philadelphia Phillies, and he's a guy that the great Bryce Harper said was the best person he had ever met, and honestly, I don't think I can argue with that. Jameson, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Frank. I think Bryce has met some better people since then, but I appreciate the kind words.
Well, he pegged you pretty well. He might be a scout when he's done playing because he definitely had a good scouting report on you. So anyway, you're the Director of Team Travel for the Phillies. We're going to get into all that. I want you to talk about your job, what it's all about. But first, let's talk about you a little bit. You're a 2010 graduate of James Madison University, the football factory now down there in Virginia. And you actually, though, began working for the Phillies in 2008. And talk about that. Talk about how you got started, what some of your other roles were before you got the travel job.
Sure. I think as all Phillies fans know, that was a pretty awesome time to start with the organization. And I can attest to that. So I started while I was in college. I started basically as an usher in the premium seating areas, the Hall of Fame Club, the CP Rankin Club, and the suite level. So I was a day of game employee that first year, and just fell in love with the ballpark, the organization, the culture, and it turned out to be a special year winning the World Series. So basically fell in love with the Phillies ever since, and since then had a few other different roles. I interned in our ticket office we called the phone center at the time in 2009 and 2010. And then I was a season and group sales representative once I graduated school and worked in our group sales office in 2011. And then I interned in community relations in 2012 prior to getting hired full-time in 2013. So I worked in community relations for like 6 or 7 years before, kind of lucking my way into team travel. So it's been it's been pretty awesome. I've seen the organization from a few different lenses and loved every stop of the way for sure. It's been awesome.
Yeah, you've had a great run. So talk about that community relations role a little bit, and then we'll get into your current job as Director of Team Travel.
Absolutely. I loved working in community relations. I thought I would stay there actually longer than I did because I enjoyed it so much, but other opportunities presented itself. But with community relations, we were pretty much like the community and the charitable arm of the organization. So really just trying to get the organization out in the community, helping players in the front office with planning their own types of charity events. We had a 50-50 drawing that we hosted at the ballpark every night. So that was part of our day of game responsibilities. We had, the Phillies ball girls who you see on the field during the games, but they also are our community ambassadors, and they're out in the community, helping out at different, community appearances and charitable events. So, our department, kind of oversaw them, and also, various item donation requests that we support at local charities. So really love working in community relations, made a lot of good relationships there. It was a good opportunity for me to spend a little bit of time with the players and the coaches as well and get to know them a little bit. And, it was a nice segue into team travel for sure.
Absolutely. And I will say that I was there because I was the outgoing Director of Team Travel. Yeah. And then you took over for me. But you by far were the hands-on and number one draft pick of virtually everybody in the organization. Everybody in that building was hopeful that you'd be the successor, and they were right. And you did You did a bang-up job to start, and you're just getting better every year. You've now, it's hard to believe, 8 seasons have gone by since your rookie year of 2018, which I wasn't sure, if you were going to make it through, but I knew you would. I think you weren't sure. I was real sure you were going to make it through.
You were more sure than me.
Yeah, but you did a fine job, and you've gotten better every year, and you're highly regarded in Major League Baseball and respected throughout the Philly organization. And you and your right-hand man, Mike Roach, the two of you have enormous responsibilities and so many things that the casual fan has no idea what really goes on. I think a lot of people think when the season's over, a day or two after, we just shut off the lights and turn them back on next April, a day or two before the first game. But that is no way the case. And I want you to talk about your job, what you do, talk about some of the duties that you do, and we'll continue on from there.
Well, to start, I wouldn't have stood a chance my rookie year if it wasn't for yours truly. So Frank, thank you so much for what you taught me and the guidance and being a mentor. And, I still call you, throughout the season, even beyond the rookie year, just for advice and for perspective. Experience is definitely the best teacher. And I was fortunate, I got thrusted right into it, but I had the best in the game showing me the way. So that was definitely the reason why I made it through my rookie year. And it's a baptism by fire, and you got to learn quick. So I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you.
Wow. You were my pleasure, and you were just absolute pleasure to work with. Nothing but respectful, and that made my exit and your entry just so much smoother. And I cherish our friendship and our relationship, and it's been great to kind of help you learn the tricks of the trade and watch you succeed going forward. So let's talk about that job. And then a little later on, I'm going to ask you to kind of take us through a year of what goes on in your world. But let's talk about some of the job duties that people may not realize. The title is Director of Team Travel, but you're a lot more than just an airplane or a bus. So talk about that.
Absolutely. You touched on two of the main responsibilities. I would say, the main things are, you oversee the team airline charter, the contract, the planning, the daily logistics of manifest and seating charts and all that fun stuff for every flight, every trip. We also have our Amtrak team charter, a few train trips per year, which are always fun. We have our team hotel on the road, so contracting where the team stays in the road cities, your hotel rooming list, and all the details for your group arrival when you check in and out of a city. The team buses from the airport to the hotel to ballpark, pregame and postgame every day, and ballpark to the airport. And then also securing the trucks, the luggage truck, the equipment truck, when you arrive and depart in each city. And then day to day, and I think this is some of the things that people really don't, understand or see, but you're really in many ways a go-to for your players, your coaches, and your travel party staff on a day-to-day basis, handling their ticket requests. In spring training, you're helping them identify and secure housing. You're also providing housing resources in the Philadelphia area in the regular season. When the team makes a roster move, you are one of the first to find out, and you're responsible for getting that new player into the city where the major league club's traveling to, and also facilitating the outbound player to their next destination as well. And then a lot of it too is there's a lot of player and family services elements too. You're really there for the players' families, which is awesome, and it's really a great way to get to know the player. And a lot of times they're in a city that they're not super familiar with, so they may come to you for, you name it, a restaurant recommendation, help with, getting a ticket to a local sports game, or just asking for, advice or directions. So it's definitely never a dull moment. And as you alluded to earlier, we don't just turn the lights off once the season ends and turn them back on prior to opening day. We have the MLB winter meetings coming up here in December. There's the baseball side of it where teams are planning how to shape their roster, but all of our counterparts are basically responsible for getting the club contingency, which has grown quite a bit. We're now close to 80 guests for that week, and basically making sure that everybody's situated for that. And then we have our own meetings with our counterparts, meeting with our hotel contacts, meeting with various people at trade shows. And really, if I had to describe it, the off season, if you're a teacher, it's when you lesson plan. So you do a lot of your itineraries and
Good way to put it. Yeah.
Your planning when it's quiet and you have a little bit more time to focus. You do that in November, December. And then I think you and I have said this before, that New Year's Day is basically like opening day for a travel director, because at that point you're pretty much, full steam ahead, getting ready for spring training, and you spend February and March in spring training. So you basically relocate your life for 2 months and you're with the team getting ready for the season. So the year goes by fast. It's a lot of fun, but there's definitely a lot more elements to the job, I think, that meets the eye.
Well, there's a lot of things, and a lot of things that you mentioned, some other stuff, just normal day-to-day stuff you don't even think about, but you're the guy that's responsible, you and Mike Roach, for getting every bit of that done. All those small details really add up to something big if you don't take care of them. So now you mentioned the winter meetings. For example, talking about the differences, when I first came to the Phillies in 1989, we took 12 people to the winter meetings. Wow. In Nashville, Tennessee. And this year, you mentioned you're going to have 80 people there. So, in 36 years, times have definitely changed.
No question. And you alluded to Mike Roach. He's, my awesome, say right hand, left hand. And really a lot of that, where we now have two of us that are overseeing it, where it was just Frank overseeing the clubhouse and travel, which still blows my mind. Organizations are growing so much. Like our full-time regular season travel party, which is about 70 people, since I got started, we were probably closer to like 55. We've added, close to 15 right. Full-time travelers. And there's just so many more people and staff that are there to support the on-field product, whether it's, nutrition, massage, digital media, PR, additional training and strength staff. A lot more people that, I guess, make the train go for each team. So it's just a lot more to stay on top of. And it's things have definitely grown, and you see that at the winter meetings. You see that in every flight. So it's definitely a big operation, and it keeps you on your toes for sure.
So let's talk about the winter meetings, which are coming up here at the end of the week. Starts down in Orlando, Florida. Basically, I guess Saturday or Sunday you'll go down. This weekend you'll head down there along with 79 other people. But it's not just going down there. You're making flight reservations. You're making hotel reservations. You have to find a room for all those people. And you also plan a meal down there, at least one, sometimes more. Yeah. An affiliated, you still have the affiliates dinner with all the minor league representation, or not? We
do actually. Yeah. So we'll be going. Personally, I'll be going down Saturday, just kind of getting everything situated. Do a little grocery shopping here for our group, and be there for everybody's arrival. And then most of our guests arrive Sunday, and we do like a organization kickoff on Sunday before we really get into the meetings. And it's pretty cool because, these are people within your organization and your minor league affiliates that you talk to throughout the year, but it's really like the one time of year where you're all together at the same time and just have a meal just to kind of kick off the week. And it's little, winter meetings reception that we have. And then now we also do plan like a large group dinner for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as well for our group. So planning dinner for, 40 to 50 people for a couple more nights. So it's
And that's tough to do when you have thousands of people there, not only people within the organization, but all kind of vendors and everybody else that, showing their wares at the winter meetings, travel, as you mentioned, hotel reps, airline reps, bus companies, all those sorts of things. They all need housing too. Now, you're not responsible for their housing, but that means they're also around that hotel and around those restaurants, and it's not easy to go find somewhere for 50 people to eat dinner. You got some big challenges there, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great, week. There are meetings back to back to back, and you try to connect with as many people as you can. And even if you're in a city and you don't stay at a particular hotel, it's always valuable to connect with them, because you never know what could happen in terms of like rescheduling postseason. Sometimes a hotel may not be able to take you during a particular series if they have a citywide or another large event. So really networking and just trying to meet people is definitely key, especially that week, but really just at any point in general.
So the next thing I want to go through with you is I'd like you to kind of take us through your year, your planning year. And we'll start with this week, the winter meetings, which you've touched on and described a lot of the duties that you have there. So after the winter meetings and the Rule 5 draft where, they're able to possibly select a player, then correct me if I'm wrong, you probably need to start reaching out to guys about reporting date for spring training, etc. I want you to take it from there and just take us through the whole year, touch on, what gets done at what time of the year, so people understand that, the baseball schedule comes out a lot earlier in most cases than people realize. And you got to jump on those hotel rooms right then, because these big cities fill up.
Absolutely. Well, I will say I got the answers to the test on the timeline. That was one of the things that Frank provided for me, during my rookie year, and that I still have it hanging in my office because it really is like a good big picture snapshot of the key tasks that you have to keep your eye on, because you're always looking ahead. You have a lot in front of you on a game day and on a day-to-day basis, but you really do need to plan ahead on big picture things in order to be successful, and it just makes your life a lot easier. So after the winter meetings, as Frank alluded to, you'll start reaching out to your players and giving them report dates for spring training. You provide them some of your best housing contacts and resources, hotels that we partner with, and just try to encourage people who know you will be in your major league camp to start securing housing, because it's certainly become, it's always been competitive, but it's very, very competitive now in Florida or Arizona, depending on where you have spring training. So you try to get that information out before the holidays to everybody. And then really throughout the month of January, you're just making sure everybody has housing, that they have, either need a rental car or to ship their personal car down to Florida. And you try to, coordinate and plan with that as well. So a lot of January is, you're kind of fine tuning your spring training, planning and scheduling. And spring training is pretty big. It's, you'll have anywhere from 65 to 75 players in major league camp. And as a result, you have a much bigger, staff of coaches and support staff that are there for major league camp as well. So, you're getting well over 100 people solidified, for February and March for spring training. So that's where a lot of January in the year starts, or the calendar year, excuse me. And then, everybody arrives in the middle of February. Usually travel directors will get there at least the week before, if not 2 weeks before, just to get situated down at their spring training site. And then in late February, spring training games start. So pretty much, every other day, you're home or you're going to a road spring training game, and you're handling the tickets, making sure that the buses go well for spring training. So spring training it's some people say it's like Groundhog Day. It's very, regimented and scheduled, and a lot of the days seem the same, but pretty much every day from the middle of February through the end of March, you have a game. There's only usually 1 or 2 off days per club, so it's quite a busy time, given the volume of people and the number of days in a row that you have a game or a workout. End of March, we break camp with your opening day roster, and we'll head back to Philadelphia and open the season from there. And then the travel directors, we are basically traveling with the team on every road trip, and basically everywhere the team goes, we go. So you see the baseball schedule, and we basically are with the team traveling to each city. And as I alluded to earlier, you're always trying to plan ahead. So you're trying to send rooming lists and hotel correspondence, at least 30 to 45 days out, with just some basic planning lists and principles. And then as you get closer and closer to each day, you're trying to, update lists and rosters and all these things. So you try to plan far in advance, and then just try to update small details as you go along. So that, is pretty much, I would say late March through end of September. But as we kind of already touched on, middle to late summer, you'll get an early draft of your schedule, and immediately you just want to jump on, your schedule for the next year. You want to jump on at least corresponding with hotels. These are our dates for next year. If you can, please hold this room block and try to make your decisions pretty quickly once the schedule is finalized. And you want to get on that as soon as you can. And then the other thing that's sort of happening at that time is, right after the All-Star break, you really want to start planning for postseason as well. I know standings and things can change quite a bit from late July through the end of September, but you at least want to start communicating what the dates are for each round and how the standings are looking and anticipated hotel needs, because that is a little bit of a rat race. And, travel parties are a lot larger in the postseason in October than during the regular season. So it's a lot of extra work there. So
let me stop you for 1 second. So talk about the travel party for a regular season. It's about 70 people.
Yep.
And for those postseason playoff and World Series games, give a number out there, approximate number of how many you've got going along.
Sure. For us, the wild card or the division series, we're anywhere from 150 to 160 people. And then for the NLCS, we're usually at like 185 to 190. And then, if you're fortunate to, reach the ultimate destination, the World Series, historically we bring all of our employees from Philadelphia to some version of the road destination, the World Series. And we were close to 400 people in 2022. So,
they all need rooms, and they all need meal money. And, that was the thing that used to keep me awake sometimes at night. I'd say, I was going to say a dream, but it's more like a nightmare. I'd wake up and had dreamt that I had forgotten to take the meal money with me. Wow. And once you get to the airport, it's a little too late.
Well, absolutely. There's so many different ways now. You can leaving myself reminders,
That's what I did.
Text alerts, or just printing a sign on my door. So I share that with you. It's always good to just remind yourself. And, every road trip, and I know it's one that you had, I kind of work off of a checklist because it becomes repetitive, but things come up. You might be in the middle of a task and receive a phone call. So there's those kind of big picture tasks for every road trip that you try to stay on top of. So lists and details and staying organized is definitely our best friend.
So now you got us through the World Series, which is October, November. When do you start on, knowing that you have your schedule, when do you start on the airline stuff for the next year?
We as soon as we get the schedule, for the next year, late summer, we try to send it to the airlines right away just to get some rough numbers for budgeting. Usually we have to present some form of a budget in August or September. So we try to get some rough pricing, but then we'll update that as we go. Once we get game times or an early list of game times, because things can certainly change if you're playing a 105 game or a 705 game. That has some significance to the airlines and, can alter things a little bit. So we'll send them an early draft of that in like late July. And then, usually now we'll get more game times and send them an updated version of that schedule.
Okay. So why don't we take a break right here, and we'll be back with Jameson in just a minute. We're back with Jameson Hall, the guy that has to basically do every little thing on the road. He and Mike Roach, his right hand and left hand man, as he called him. They're the detail guys. They make sure that everything runs smoothly. And Jameson, you took us through the airline stuff. We're just about to turn the corner and get back to the fall of the year again. So continue with your calendar or your timeline of what your year is like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully, we're working, well into late October, early November, and have a deep postseason run. And, November, I would say for us, it's quieter because it's a more normal lifestyle. You're not working as many like nights and weekends, but, as we said, the lights don't go out, once the season ends. And in my opinion, even though it's a quieter and a different pace, the most significant work I would think is done in November and December, because that's when you are doing a lot of your big picture planning, your itinerary for each road trip. You're putting those, sort of pillars and items in place. You're contacting bus companies and truck companies with your club dates for travel. And you're finalizing all your big picture planning and trying to put final touches on those. So really, again, it's your lesson planning time, and also any like adjustments that you need to make and with how you operate and do things. It's usually a good time to do it, because once the new year rolls around, it's pretty much full steam ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So you gave us the synopsis of what a year is like, and it's pretty amazing. So how about a typical day for you? What time do you get to the ballpark for a 6:40 p.m. game, and what do you work on when you get there?
Sure. And I could say you could probably divide it out versus, home and road. On the road, usually our first buses are around 12 or 12:30. First day of a series, I usually like to get there on the first bus, go over with our coaches and our staff, and just get situated, unpack a little trunk that I have, and at the ballpark, and get situated. And a lot of times when you're on the road, if you're city one of a 2-city road trip, you're really communicating with that next hotel, and your next, your buses and the people that you're coming into town for a few more days, and just, reminding them again on your details, making sure that you have the cell phone number for all your essential points of contact who will be receiving you. Especially important if you're arriving well after midnight. It can be tough to get a hold of people. So we're just finalizing those details, usually when you're, first starting on the road. And then early afternoon, when the players are getting to the ballpark, you're, kind of making a lap around the clubhouse, talking to the guys, checking in, seeing if they need anything, making sure that they input their tickets for that night. They have a little website that they can input ticket requests, or if they need any help, you're there to help them and make sure that they're comfortable and ready to go. So that way, once they go out to the field for batting practice, they're focused on the game and they don't have to worry about, any other things that can potentially bother them, and they can just focus on playing and winning a ball game. So that I would say that's pretty much what it looks like on the road. And then once the game is started, it's a little more quiet for us. So you can, again, work ahead on some other things that you may need to. And, post game, after the game ends, you're posting your bus times. We usually have 3 buses post game for the team. And, they're anywhere from 25 to 45 to 75 minutes after the game. And you go back to the hotel, usually around midnight, depending on what time the game ends. And you get up and you do it again the next day. And then
that's the life.
That's the life. Yeah. And then at home, it doesn't look too much different, except you're going back to your own home. But at home, you have a little bit more freedom. Sometimes you may need to get in a little earlier if you have a meeting with, some other members of the front office, or, if it's a little bit of a quieter day, maybe able to go in a little later and spend more time with the family in the morning. So,
well, when you get back home, you always have a big stack of mail waiting for you too, called bills.
Yes, yes. So that's another, again, things people don't think of, but
Right.
all those hotels you stay at, all those vendors that you utilize, you got bills that you got to keep up on. So those are usually things that we can work on once the game starts and it's quiet, and you have the game on in the background so you can kind of follow along and see what's going on. And it's important for us to keep track, because depending what happens, if hopefully, knock on wood, nobody gets hurt, but if there's an injury, you got to be ready to answer that phone call post game if you need to bring a new player in. So
yeah, exactly. So now let's talk about some challenging situations. What you just told us was, if everything's going well, that's how it works. But you had a couple of real challenging situations last summer, and I want to talk about that. You had a family trip up in New York, and I think you maybe gone to Chicago also.
Yep.
But you had some plane issues or some weather issues, and you couldn't get out of New York for 5 or 6 hours, I think, after the game. And you've got all the players, all the coaches, all the rest of the staff, and all those families all waiting for you to give them the word when they can leave. And what'd you do with them for all those hours?
It was certainly a afternoon we'll never forget. And hopefully everybody can look back on it now and realize they had that unique opportunity to spend time at Yankee Stadium afterwards. But not so sure we felt that way at the time. But
No.
yeah, there was basically a ground stop from air traffic control that planes could not get inbound into any of the New York airports. So our plane that was coming in from Atlanta, unfortunately, we were held up for about 6 hours with getting that plane into any of the New York airports due to weather. So fortunately, we were at a great ballpark, and couldn't thank the clubhouse staff enough. Luca Cusa was an incredible host.
Yeah.
So basically, we hung out in the clubhouse. There's an alumni clubhouse right next to there that the Yankees have, which is unique, but was a godsend for us. And also a family room as well. So the families were able to hang out. And basically we got some extra pizzas that Lou went out and picked up for us. And basically had a post-game pizza party for several hours and hung out until we got the word that we could, proceed to Chicago. So, instead of getting into Chicago around 9 o'clock, we got in closer to 1:30 in the morning. And it definitely makes for a long night, because you have, instead of 70 people, you have 175 people. So that's 100 more suitcases that need to, go up to the hotel room once you get there. So certainly a long night, and play the next day. And it can always an adventure. So you always have to stay humble and stay on your toes, for sure.
That's for sure. So now you had another one in Cincinnati. You were leaving Cincinnati after a night game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And you went to the airport, which is located in Kentucky, by the way.
Yep.
And you had some plane issue there that couldn't be handled. It couldn't be taken care of. You actually had to get off the plane and find a hotel that could take on your entire traveling party, which is nearly impossible. How in the heck did you do that?
We were fortunate. Unfortunate to start. We had 2 plane mechanicals that they attempted to fix twice. So after 2 attempts, and we're pushing 2 in the morning at this point, we were informed that they couldn't fix it that evening and would basically have to bring in a new plane the following day and a new flight crew, because the flight crew was ready to the pilots were ready to time out.
Yeah.
So once the first plane mechanical happened, look, best case scenario, they fix it and you proceed to Washington, D.C. But Mike Roach and myself, we're just working on contingency planning. And, I think Mike was the superstar and the MVP in this scenario. He called the bus driver right away and told him to stay close and just make sure that we were okay, the bus driver in Cincinnati. So after we got word that we had to spend the night, the bus drivers pulled back up to the plane, and we started transferring luggage from under the plane back onto under the buses, and pulling everybody's suitcase. So that took a little bit of time, but the biggest challenge was finding a place to stay. There was the Cincinnati Open, pretty big tennis tournament in town, and you're not in a super big city with a whole bunch of hotels. So, we've been making several phone calls, and by a small miracle, there was a Marriott Convention Center hotel not far from where we were staying that had a little over 60 rooms that could accommodate a majority of our travel party staff. When I say majority, we did have a few people that had staff members, no players, but that had to double up for that night. So, around 3:00, the buses left the airport after we transferred the luggage underneath, pulled up to the hotel around 3:30. And between 3:30 and 4:00, we got everybody up into the room for their night. And we had to travel from Cincinnati to Washington, D.C. the next day. So the next day, we were strategic in the time we wanted to fly. Our airline told us just do what's most conducive for you. We wanted to let people get some sleep. So the next day, tried to sleep as much as we could at that point. And 12:00 bus to the airport, 1:00 flight. We landed around 2 and then got to the stadium at 2:45 for a 6:45 game the next day. So, or for that evening, excuse me.
Well,
so
let me stop you 1 second. But what people don't realize is you got there at 2:45. What time did all the equipment and the uniforms get there?
Same, shortly after us. We got
and all that laundry, was it clean or dirty?
It was dirty. So
that's what the fans have no idea that goes on.
No, it true. And one thing, we got some laundry hampers under the bus. So basically it arrived with us, and then we had our equipment truck, leave shortly after us after it was loaded. So
right.
Basically guys got there and they got a late lunch, pregame meal. And then, basically it was all hands on deck for unloading the equipment and getting it moving pretty quick. So that's certainly a 2 days we'll never forget. But the one really cool thing was that everybody hopped in to help. I mean, you had Morgan Gregory, our strength coach, and Chris Ware for PR on the trip, helping unload equipment bags, and at the hotel helping us pull luggage bags, and Sean Bowers from the clubhouse. So everybody hopped in. Everybody had a great attitude about it. It showed a lot about our club for sure. Well,
you guys did a remarkable job. In all the years I worked, I never had to do that. I never had to get off the plane and try it again the next day. We had a couple close calls, but I got lucky. But I was trying to think of some things that I encountered. I remember we were in Fenway Park, and Pat Gillick was the general manager, and it was a Sunday game. So we had already checked out of the hotel, and we were leaving. We had an off day the next day, but we were, I think, going to Tampa.
Okay.
And so I had asked the hotel before we even got there if we got bad weather. I said, I know they'll keep us over a Sunday night because Monday's an off day for both teams, and we don't go back to Boston. Could you take us? And she said, yeah, no problem. Well, that was all fine and dandy until about an hour before the game, when we had already checked out and all the equipment was already on the truck, all the luggage on the truck. And Pat Gillick walks up to me and says, I think they're going to call the game off. Are you going to be able to go back to the hotel? Well, I called her up, and unfortunately they couldn't take us back. So we're scrambling, and they found us accommodations at a Marriott across the street from where we were staying in Boston, and they actually went over and facilitated the rooming list and the keys and everything else with that hotel's people. We had no contract with that hotel or anything, but in an emergency, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this must be the worst thing that ever happened, until about a month later, and we were in New York, and the same thing happened on a Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
And I called the truck driver, who was already halfway back to Philadelphia, and said, you need to turn around and come back with all that luggage. I said, because we're getting rained out and we got to stay over. And as bad luck would have it then, we were in 3 different hotels.
Oh,
so, the next day, as you could certainly understand, lining up buses and trucks to pick up the luggage and the people at 3 different stops made it a little messy, but we made it.
You love to tell the stories. It's true.
Right.
Man, 3 hotels. The other fun fact, Mike rode to the hotel in Cincinnati or in Covington ahead of me just to try to get as many key packets pulled as he could, because they're cutting over 60 different, room packets and keys as fast as they can. And
you got that mob scene in the lobby all looking for their key.
Yep. And it gives you an appreciation of how much work hotels have to do in advance of our arrival for a group arrival. But he's like, hey, they're working hard. We have 2 people here at the front desk overnight. And he goes, but the one gentleman just told me that today was his first day. So,
wow.
Yeah, I said, so that'll be a day that person never forgets. But we were grateful that they were able to take us, and everybody had an awesome attitude.
Yeah. That's terrific. You guys did a remarkable job. Really proud of both of you. And now let's talk about a couple of fun things. Well, maybe not all fun for you, but certainly interesting. You took the team to London for the big London series a couple years ago, and you got to do that one. And then you've done a couple trips to the Little League Classic in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And now this year, you're going to have a new one. You're going to be playing at the Field of Dreams in Dyersburg, Iowa. I know those are all you have the worst job for all of those things, but it certainly makes it interesting, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty special to be selected for those opportunities, but it's a lot of work for the travel director, just to oversee logistics. You're talking about going to places that don't have a major league ready ballpark, or in some cases, even a large hotel to accommodate the group. So, for the Little League Classic and for the Field of Dreams, clubs fly in that morning, play the game, and then they fly out post game, which is definitely a unique travel pattern. And then, London, we flew overnight. We had a sort of recovery day just to get acclimated, and then a workout the next day. So really kind of 2 off days in a row, which is unique. And then, 2 games. But
you probably had some parties you had to worry about too, didn't you?
That is correct. Yep, we had we had Kevin Beal in our front office, who does an awesome job planning those functions. But you're there to support as well. But some pretty cool opportunities. We had a club reception at the Tower of London, right next to where we were staying, and MLB hosted a gala at the Natural History Museum. So it makes those events extra special, and some pretty cool, photos to look back on. And it was a pretty awesome opportunity. So grateful for it, but it definitely adds a lot of extra planning. And again, these are places that you really never have gone to before, or the team's never traveled to. So it's new for everybody. So you just have to try to learn as much as you can quickly.
Well, you have a behind-the-scenes job, but you definitely have one of the most interesting jobs, in my opinion, in the game. You've done a great job. You're still doing fabulous. You're going to be the Donald Davidson winner, if not this year, very soon. And you should have probably already won it by now. But after the year you just had, if I had a vote, I'm voting for you right now. But anyway, I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us, being our guest today. I think it was really nice for the fans to get a real glimpse inside to see what really goes on behind the scenes. And Jameson, thanks a million for coming on.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure, Frank. Thanks for having me. Big fan of your show and just the different perspectives you shed, on the game of baseball. There's just so much more to it, and can't thank you enough for your friendship and mentorship. It's been a huge difference maker for me. So thank you again.
Well, the pleasure's all mine, and we're just about done here, but I got one more little piece of business I got to bring up. Today is our producer, Brian Anthony Davis's birthday, and I want to wish him a very happy birthday. And lastly, please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the Fans First Sports Network. And we'll see you again soon with another exciting show.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Planes, Trains, Buses, and Ballparks with Frank Coppenbarger. Tune in next week for another great episode on the Fans First Sports Network.